What up, y'all? We are the Wizardly Duo. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and I've got a special guest. I've got Nico from Niko's Book Reviews here.
Hello there.
And we're just kind of floundering for an idea of a video that we kind of can do together, because it's kind of obligatory when you meet your booktube buddy that you do a video together. And so we decided that we were going to go through my collection, and because I do sci-fi and fantasy, I would recommend 5 sci-fi books, and then Niko would go and find 5 fantasy books that he's read, and we would do a recommendation. So we've each gone and just kind of run throughout my house and picked 5 books each.
All of his bookshelves are destroyed.
And so I guess we're going to kind of alternate off and recommend books. But because a lot of the people here are for fantasy, we're going to start with Niko. So Niko, what's your number 1 pick?
All right, so I'm going to just, I think, go in the order I picked them up. So this isn't necessarily like a ranking, but the first one I had to go with is The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. I actually just recently finished this, and I had been meaning to read Memory, Sorrow, Thorn for a long time. Andrew very specifically had told me I needed to read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and so I enjoyed it so much. I actually have a review that may be out when this is posted, depending, but it's coming out, or was out, but really, really enjoyed this book. It is just great classic fantasy, does so many of what you want when you're reading a classic fantasy story. The good versus evil, it does kind of have like the young boy going on a quest trope, but it's done in a really interesting way and with lots of great characters. And Binnabik, a fantastic troll who has like great quotes, is in this, and I could read this just for Binnabik, so it's definitely a high recommendation.
To clarify, Binnabik is an actual troll and not an internet troll.
Yes, very important.
Alright, so then I'm going to do my first pick. I'm also going to just go in the order that I've got them stacked here on top of my laptop, which seems ill-advised. But I'm going to start with Leviathan Wakes. I recently just started The Expanse, and honestly, I feel like each book has gotten stronger and stronger. I just finished book 2, Caliban's War, earlier this month, and I felt like it was just leaps and bounds better than Leviathan Wakes, which you would think I'd recommend Caliban's War, but now you gotta start at the beginning in order for the story to make sense. Honestly, this is great, just grip you by your butt. Space fantasy. It's a lot darker than you might think. I do have a review for this. I'll probably have that linked in the description down below. But, I mean, just the mystery here, the science, it's got a little bit weak dialogue and some sluggish world building that is addressed in later books. But if you're looking for something super accessible, really eases you into the sci-fi world, you can't go wrong with Leviathan Wakes. And that's going to be my first recommendation.
Also on my TBR, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Narsil is waiting for you to
I know, he's been waiting for me for so long, and I feel bad, but my TBR is a mess.
Oh, dude, I'm aware.
Well, that's a great transition. Speaking of one of the reasons why my TBRs are so messy, Robin Hobb!
I didn't see that in your stack.
That was a great time to talk about. So this is Fool's Errand, and this is the first book in the Tawny Man trilogy by Robin Hobb. Now, I grabbed this one because I've talked a lot about Farseer and about the Life Shift Traders as well. They switch off. So this is back in the Six Duchies with Fitz. Now, I know some people don't really care for Fitz, but this book was just so fantastic. And it starts out really, really slow, like Robin Hobb tends to do with a lot of books, but just the depth of the emotion and the amount that she has made me care about a fictional character. I mean, like, I feel like Fitz is a real person, and I have to feel his pain with him, and these are so good, and I'll have to see if I've heard a lot of people say Tawny Man ends up beating out Farseer trilogy for them, which is hard for me to believe because of how much I loved Farseer. But off to a great start here, so definitely Realm of the Elderlings in general is something I'm working on. I recommend so highly. We've actually both been reading these.
Oh yeah, with Megan?
With Megan, yeah, for Megan's Reading Revelations, and just absolutely loving the ride. So I can never recommend Robin Hobb enough, as long as you're okay with slow burn, a little bit depressing fantasy.
Super slow, super depressing. I'm actually, I think 90% now into Golden Fool, which is the sequel to Fool's Errand, and so far Tawny Man I think is better than Farseer.
Man,
and that is high praise.
I have Golden Fool with me while I'm on this trip, so I'm probably going to be starting it really, really soon.
You totally should. It really slows down and you get into the nitty-gritty.
I love it.
If we're going to be talking just kind of slow burn classics, let's do the granddaddy of sci-fi. One of the granddaddies. I mean, there's Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke and all those. But we've also got Frank Herbert's Dune, which is my number 2 pick. I'm going to tell you what, guys. Like, not only is this edition just absolutely gorgeous, I've talked about it before. It's got the blue sprayed edges with just, the end pages and the hidden art. Just totally fantastic. You should definitely pick it up. It's like $26 on Amazon. Very affordable, at least in the U.S. And this story is just, it's full of great, expansive ideas. And a lot of, like, just sci-fi took their cues from Dune. I think Star Wars used Dune as a inspiration. I think, in fact, Tatooine is based off of Arrakis here.
I did not know that, but I definitely believe that. That makes sense.
That could be something I completely just made up, but I feel like it's a fact I've heard before. So I don't know.
I'm kind of hoping it's something he made up now, just because somebody in the comments is going to be like, no, that's factually incorrect.
I just noticed he's got a halo. I've had this book for 2 years. Anyway, I just noticed the detail on the cover.
There's so many details, and you can't possibly experience them all at once. It just
threw me. But yeah, this story is just, you get to really get into the head of Paul, and you get to learn of politics and inspiration and just the science and everything in this book is well worth your time. It does take a little bit of getting used to because it's very dry and the POV is very unique. I think it's like third person omniscient, and it jumps POV really quick, and you get their inner thoughts and their outer thoughts. So it's really interesting. But Frank Herbert is a master of it, and within 100 pages, it just felt natural. It's so good. I'm interested in the movie because there is so much inner dialogue built into this book. I'm interested to see how they pull that off.
It will be interesting. And I've actually read that one. So
You've read Dune?
I have read Dune.
I didn't know you'd read Dune.
I have an old, like, really old, beat-up, like, paperback copy. That's not nearly as nice. So I probably need to upgrade. But I've only read the first one, but I have read Dune.
This one's super affordable.
And enjoyed it, so I haven't read the others. But yeah, I need to reread Dune at some point. So that's still something I need on my list.
If you want another buddy read, we're actually...
Why? No! I'm done. I'm leaving. This collab is over. Can't believe he just said that to me.
We're actually reading each Herbert book one a month as we go forward until the release of the movie.
Fine.
It's in Evie's Discord. I'll send you an invite.
That's all I need. It's more buddy reads. But
what's your next pick?
All right. So next up, and if you're familiar with my channel, you probably knew this was coming, but Andrew has a copy of King's Dragon, which is... I had a copy. Well, I'm maybe stealing all of his hardcovers, because they're so much nicer than my copies, but... so this is King's Dragon, the first book in the Crown of Stars by Kate Elliott, with the really interesting cover. Most of them have kind of these weird classic fantasy covers, but this series, I'm actually only 4 books in so far. This is the first of 7, if I didn't say that. But I have absolutely loved it. This is just like everything you look for in a classic fantasy setting. It's got really great characters. The world building is ridiculous. By book 4, we've expanded so much, but yet still tied everything back together, which is hard to do, because you do get some books where like we're just ever expanding and then pulling it back together. It's kind of messy. But this is a very like medieval fantasy. But it doesn't follow necessarily your typical characters. We do start with kind of like the young boy of mysterious parentage type trope, but that's completely turned on its head pretty quickly, and it just expanded on different ways. And then we have a young female character as well, who really becomes more of the main character. But this, for fans of like, probably like Tad Williams, Robin Hobb, that are good with the slower while we're developing a rich world, I just can't say enough. I'm always trying to get people to read Crown of Stars, which is the entire reason he owns this book.
It's funny, I was actually talking to somebody in a Discord lately, and they were in New Zealand, and the covers are completely different. They actually look a little bit more YA, like a little bit more artistic.
Interesting.
And they're done by, I think, Orbit.
These are definitely not YA novels, just for the record.
They asked me if I wanted to trade, and I was like, sorry, somebody else has first dibs.
Yes! I love them.
That moves me on to my next pick, and this is, honestly, I just realized Ted Williams appears in this video twice. This is going to be Otherland. The I forget, does this actually have a series name? I call it the Otherland series. So we're going to go with that. But I grew up reading this book, and it's actually really, really interesting because it was so far-seeing. This really tackles like virtual reality and like immersing yourself into a virtual world and what happens if you get trapped in that world. And it's also just got a great found family. It's got a deep, deep mystery. And the series and book just blows my mind. I actually never finished this series, which is why I've repurchased these gorgeous, I know, these gorgeous first editions. This one and I think I've shown this when I hold them, but you know, you can never flex just a little too much. But this one is signed by the man himself, Tad Williams. And I just love this story. I've probably read Otherland 6 times, which makes it weird that I've never finished the series. But I have all 4 of them now, and I cannot recommend at least this first book enough. It is so interesting.
I do have that one too. So
you should totally read it.
Mine's a paperback, and I definitely will be reading it at some point, and then probably have to get fancy hardcovers like Andrew here too. But
you know, they weren't. I was like 120 for 2 signed and the other 2 in original first editions on eBay. They weren't really that bad.
That isn't bad for that kind of book, so it's very interesting. But we've been doing a lot of classic stuff. So for the next one, I think we both do. Yeah, we both have something just a little bit newer. And so something very, very different from everything else I've talked about. Most of my stuff I realized after picking like 4 out of the 5 are kind of older, classic, slower fantasy. So I'm glad I have one. And that is Black Stone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher. And see, Andrew has these beautiful hardcovers, and you could just, we gotta show
right there. She Dreams in Blood.
Because this is so pretty. Like, at least for my Blackstone Heart, it's like really nice purple and black, but like these are so pretty. I love these covers. Just acting like I own his bookshelf. Okay. But this is completely different. This is a great book for when you just want to try something totally different. It's got like the base premise as we have the main character, Crane, who kind of like wakes up and doesn't remember anything, but he has to like find other literal pieces of his heart. Some of them who have grown into like other versions of him, and try to find out who he was. It's just, it goes from like exceedingly dark to like having like some romantic type stories, and then having somebody learning about love and loss and grief and anger for the first time, and just starts to slowly reveal a much bigger story. So a really, really fun one is the first Fletcher book I read, and just such a quick read too. This is a pretty short book. It's only like 300-ish pages or so. And really, really interesting. And once you get to the epilogue, it just makes you immediately want to read the next book too. So great, great read. Definitely something different than the other 4 books that I picked. So I wanted to have something in there that's a little bit quicker and more modern. So
I really need to get to those.
Yeah, it won't take you long. A few days.
I know. I just had to, like, I literally saw those in because Fletcher's in Mark's Discord, and he posted those. He's like, I got these beauties. I was like, get me! And my brain just haywired.
I bought the paperbacks not realizing the hardcovers existed.
Oh, they're so good.
I was a little upset about it, just a little bit. A little bit.
I'm going to be checking your pockets on the way out. I'm just
That's probably fair.
My next pick is also a kind of newer one. It's not super classic. Nico hates this book.
I do.
And that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, granted, the Red Rising, the entire series as a whole, is a very, very mixed bag. You've got the first book, which is kind of almost universally panned. It's kind of like Hunger Games-ish, but it's not super long. I view this as just a very long prologue. But when you get to Golden Sun, Morning Star, it's just a completely different feel. It's a wild ride. Literally, it's just betrayal, plot twist, death, just all over the place. And then you get to the sequel trilogy, which I've only read Iron Gold. I haven't gotten to Dark Age yet, so we'll see what I feel when I finish this series. But if you're looking for something that's just a lot of fun, super original, this is kind of like, it's got that Hunger Games thing on it. In fact, it does say Katniss right there on the front. I just realized that. So it does have that Hunger Games feel to it. But it's also just got, it's so interesting. I really, really love Red Rising, and you should pick it up because it's well worth the time, as long as you're willing to have your heart broken.
I do have the second book I am planning on reading to try to help a little bit, so it should be fine. We'll see. But I just talked about doing something a little bit more modern, so we're jumping back now to classics.
Way classic.
I just can't help myself, but this is like an original that he has this very old hardcover of Lord Thalos Bane by Stephen R. Donaldson. So I've read this whole trilogy. It's the first Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. This is something I just think that is not talked about or read enough. Now, I do have to give a big caveat because this is slower. The prose is very beautiful. There's a lot of description, and then there's definitely some darker things that happen. And so this is one, you do have to kind of be prepared to read this kind of book, but the prose is beautiful. The overall story and the struggles, it's where you have Thomas Covenant, basically, who this is kind of like a portal fantasy where he has leprosy and is like shunned for it, and then ends up in a fantasy land and is kind of like they want him to be the hero, but he refuses, and that's kind of the base premise, and that's why he's the unbeliever. So there's just a really, really interesting philosophical kind of journey through. So definitely one that it's not going to be for everyone by any means, but it's one I recommend if you're in the mood for like a nice, really deep classic look at some fantasy.
I bought that months ago on your recommendation, and someday I'll get to it.
Yeah.
Like I say, I have a book collecting problem, and sometimes I even read my books. Sometimes. Yeah. My last one is also a bit on the classic side, and that's going to be Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And we just actually recently read this book in the Wizardly Duo Discord as, what was it, May?
June, I think.
June. The June book for the Wizardly Duo Discord was Jurassic Park, and that was my first time reading it. And I had a lot of fun with this. Mainly, I had a lot of fun kind of just comparing it to this legendary movie that I grew up with to a legendary book that I didn't even realize existed until I was 18. I'm 31 now, so, I mean, I had no excuse of not having read it, but I finally got it in my back pocket. This is a really, 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 really interesting take on just cloning and what, scientific theory and scientific morality and just all sorts of, like, survival. It's a really, really interesting take on basically just people going to an amusement park that was very, very ill-advised. And that's really the whole premise here. Obviously, pretty much everybody knows what Jurassic Park is. There's just some really interesting shifts here in the book, and it's kind of like Stephen King's The Shining, where the book and the movie are completely different, but at the same time, they're both like titans of their genres. And I can easily pull that into Jurassic Park because it's just, it was a wild ride. And the first few pages were kind of a bit dry, and then it felt like I was reading a scientific report because guess what? That's what it was. I was just like, what? What happened? I read Sphere. The prose wasn't like this. And then the actual book started, and I was fine. But yeah, I absolutely loved Jurassic Park, and I highly, highly recommend it.
Still need to read Lost World, but
yeah,
Jurassic Park was really good.
No, I'll get to it someday.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read it either yet.
Oh, well.
I have the same edition.
Hey, Nico, you want to do a buddy read?
Guys, this might be Andrew's last video.
I'm not even sorry. So, that is all of our picks. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of our picks. Down in the comments down below. Have you read any of these? Do you have thoughts? We would love to hear your thoughts. Or if you want to chat with both of us, you can check the description down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord. We would love to have you. We've got it's an ever-growing community. We've got tons of buddy reads going on. We've got book giveaways going on in there occasionally. We've got reading sprints going on in that Discord. We're just constantly thinking of new ways to enrich this community, and we would love to have you be a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, and as always, guys, I'm Nico.
Just today, I'm Andrew.
Peace out.
Stay
magical. Bye.